And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 60 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
I'm Gabe White.
And joining us tonight is Gabe White of Gabe White Training. You have seen the show before and you cut me off. How rude.
I'm sorry. Gabe, I didn't know.
No, it's okay. Welcome to the show, buddy. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. There was like this pause. I thought I was supposed to go next.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. So Gabe is joining us in the hot seat tonight, folks. But before we get into it, of course, with the holiday season upon us, Christmas just right around the corner, there are tons of deals online right now, many of which you can find at our many affiliate distributors, Palmetto State Armory, Primary Arms, Right On Optics. All those are at greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate links. Be sure to go over and check them out if you're going to do your Christmas shopping. Gives us a little bit of kickback and supports the podcast. But enough about the marketing. Let's get into it. Gabe, welcome to the show formally. We like to start off the show with an opportunity for our guests to introduce themselves. So, Gabe, for those watching and those that might be listening to us on their commute to work through their favorite podcast player, please explain to everybody, who the hell are you?
Well, my name is Gabriel White. Mostly I go by Gabe. I'm a shooter and trainer from the Pacific Northwest. My emphasis personally is on high performance concealed carry. So trying to get very high performance levels with what people really walk around with on a daily basis. And that doesn't necessarily mean a gun that is typically carried on a daily basis, like the type of gun that is commonly carried by the masses of carriers on a daily basis. But, gun culture 3.0 gun, like a really, really workable gun that you can exert a high level of capability with. That's kind of my personal thrust of training, and there's a lot of subparts to that. But basically, just a private citizen that's been very, very fortunate to learn from a lot of good people and have a lot of opportunity to practice and make more out of myself. And now I'm really fortunate to have the opportunity to try to help other people make more out of themselves as well.
Dude, that's fantastic. So you hit on an interesting point. I know that this usually gets a little bit of we'll call it debate going on the internet, right? So you mentioned you're a private citizen. Any LE or military background?
No, I'm not a police officer, not a soldier. I'm just a private citizen. And from the time I've been a little kid, I've always been interested in the martial arts and self-defense. And I've always been studying something, at least the subject generally, or studying something directly, whatever it was at the time. And most of that time, like the latter half of my life, since I've been in the mid-late teens, has been mostly studying defensive firearm skills and tactics, primarily with a handgun.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So about what? Actually, no. I've got a better question. What really was the culminating event that got you focused on, sticking to firearms as like the central point? Because you mentioned you've studied multiple different disciplines, different martial arts, maybe wrestling. What was the culminating event that got you down the rabbit hole that is the tactical lane?
I'm not sure that there was any particular culminating event. It is the need for self-defense to include tools to enhance your base physical capability. There's no other term that I can use than it is. The need for those things has always been just completely self-evident to me. You look out the window and it's the way of the world. Big fish eat little fish. That's what happens. If you need to be able to protect your own physical body. I mean, it's like the first right and responsibility of every living thing. And that's kind of, jumping straight to the one of the deep parts of the philosophy for me. But it's been that way since I was a little kid. And it was always really obvious that obviously you need to be able to do that. And so I always knew that I needed to gain that capability for myself, because it wasn't what I just had naturally. I was not big, mean, strong, none of the aggressive, none of those things. And I come from hippies, and so they certainly weren't going to teach me. So from the time I was a little kid, it was always plainly obvious to me that I needed to be able to protect myself, and that meant some sort of training or learning. And so I've always attended to that. So I always knew that I was headed toward guns once I was old enough to get them myself. And I did. And what made me concentrate on those to the exclusion of other things, I don't know. I don't know that I could pin that down to any particular thing, just kind of an evolution of my training. I guess it was really just that by the time I got into firearms training, that was one of the major areas that I didn't have yet at all. And I dove way into it and have just never really looked back. It's probably a better, more accurate description than anything.
Awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. Well, we are really glad to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. Certainly glad you're feeling better. Kent, what's been new with you, dude?
Showing people how to take the things out of the thing on their belt, point them at the thing on the other side of the range, and press the thing without disturbing the things. Like a lot. Dude,
Hey. You got to dumb it down for the rest of the layman in the group.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry. Teaching people how to use the proprioceptive indexes of their distal joints to line up the reference devices. Look at Gabe. He's like, this.
Oh, my God.
I know.
I know you're trolling me.
I know.
And everybody, probably.
And everybody.
Put your boots on. The shit's getting deep, folks.
I know. No, there's a lot of good people in Pennsylvania who have realized maybe a little too late, but it's up to them. And they called all the professionals and they couldn't find anybody, so they're with me now, and we're helping them.
Well,
it's been crazy, man.
Luckily, like G for Green Mountain Defense isn't too far deep in the Rolodex, right? if we're going alphabetical, like
little Rolodex. Yeah.
You know what one of those are, right?
I do.
You're not that much younger than me, right? Okay.
We're lucky. We've got a lot of good partners in the retailers and stuff around here. A lot of people are filtering business our way. Honored anybody gives a damn about what we have to say. So while they do, we're going to make hay while the sun shines and try to help good people in the process. I cannot tell you just how many gun in the box private lessons I've done in the last 10 months.
I believe it.
It's been bananas. And thankfully we've got a pretty high conversion rate of people that come back for lesson 2 and lesson 3 and lesson 4 and so on.
That's great.
And I'm kind of proud to say we've convinced a couple folks that this might not be for them. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Better to find out now that way.
Right. Yeah. For various life reasons. So
big time.
Yeah, it's been good. Other than that, man, little dude is walking.
So, I saw that he went after his mother already. I saw the post.
Yeah, he attacked his mother. He charged her down and tackled her. Man, time flies. The kid's 14 months old.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. It feels like yesterday. But that's what I got going on. I'm headed down to North Carolina in like 10 days to AI/target bitch for Phil Groff and do a vehicle defense class. So I'm looking forward to that. And 2020 can kiss my ass here in 18 or 17 days or whatever. What's our countdown to being out of 2020 now?
I almost wrote something. I almost wrote something like that in an email earlier today, and then I decided not to because I decided me kissing 2020 goodbye was wholly dependent on what was waiting for us in 2021.
Listen, I'm fitting my family with shoulder pads with spikes on them. And we're going to drive around and collect gasoline. That's right. What 2021's going to be.
Perfect.
2 men enter, 1 man leave.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have no idea.
I mean, I don't know. Thunderdome in 2021 could be kind of interesting. I'd be down, right? I'll just get on your back.
Yeah, we could do that. That could work.
Oh God. So okay, I have a quick announcement. So most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life. My daughter, who is 5, took her first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class last night.
No.
Awesome.
Yes.
Oh.
Absolutely killed it. Is totally bitten by the BJJ bug. And then Professor proceeded to tell me how great she did and that she has a better sprawl than I do.
That's like one of those backhanded compliments you can really get away with if you're like, well, you suck, but your kid is fantastic. And it's like, well, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But yeah, so tomorrow is class number 2. But yeah, man, she's hooked and we're excited about it. So now we just got to get Mrs. Letzling and Ginger in there.
Man.
And the family that rolls together stays together.
I don't know, dude. I think teaching your wife to be any more dangerous than she already is might be irresponsible. That could go poorly for the rest of us.
Yeah, she's a close second to Katniss Everdeen when it comes to bow and arrow. I don't know if I want to teach her the bow and arrow choke.
She's a dangerous lady, man.
Yeah.
She just looks at you and you decide that you've made a poor life choice and you'll reconsider it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I married her. She reminds me of my mother.
Oh my God.
That Episcopalian guilt look. Yeah.
That is true.
It happens. So it's a real thing.
Let's be somewhat productive, shall we?
Oh,
So,
fine.
What for?
Yeah, I know. What for?
I'm kidding.
Why? Why would we do such a thing? So here's the deal, right? I'm forever humbled by the folks that come on this show and are willing to give us an hour and a half, 2 hours of their time. And Gabe, you're just one of many. I am not worthy. I am not worthy. It's unbelievable.
No.
The fastest appendix draw in the history of the planet is on my podcast.
Surely that can't be true.
No, that's true. That's what I heard.
I'm pretty certain not.
I don't know. So, Gabe, welcome. Thank you sincerely for being here.
Thank you.
Let's talk firearms training for a second, shall we?
Sure.
Only like a little. I promise, just a little. We won't work too much. So, if I'm all right to talk about this, I understand that you do a lot of teaching in a kind of semi-pseudo LE/non-LE role. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure, we can talk about that. So, the class that I have nationally, Pistol Shooting Solutions, is this whole other thing that's just me doing that, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about that at some point. But that's kind of the high performance concealed carry class that I kind of take on the road because it's a niche class, and because there are definitely a handful of people doing that kind of thing nationally, but there's not a lot of us, and it's kind of the distillation of stuff that I think if you're going to have me come out to some faraway place, that's really the best stuff that I think I have to offer. There's fantastic foundational level training available in practically every region all across the country. There's so much really excellent training, and that's where the majority of the good work is done. For sure. My national thing is a very niche thing. But so at the local level, I don't generally speaking, don't run my own training at the local level. I work for a sheriff's office in Oregon in the Portland area. That's a pretty unique situation where basically the sheriff's office has a facility that includes a couple of shooting ranges. It's used for a lot of our agency training and also for neighboring agency training. It also is, at least one of the ranges some of the time, is open to the public and is a publicly accessible, shooting range. You go pay fees, buy ammo there, use the range, buy targets and that stuff. Pretty basic indoor range. And then but what's really unusual and unique about the situation, or rare or unique about the situation, is that we have, so many sheriff's offices have your basic regular plain old concealed carry class that's normally oriented toward the state requirements and doesn't go beyond that. And we have that, a very robust version of that, but we have that classroom only concealed carry class that's oriented toward the state requirements. But then we have a whole 60 or 70 hour defensive handgun curriculum that continues on from that class and is open to the vetted public. So I'm a real odd duck in that world. When I was working there part-time, now I'm full-time. When I was there part-time, I was a part-time non-sworn firearms instructor that worked for a law enforcement agency teaching defensive firearms skills, mostly to vetted private citizens or whoever paid to take themselves to class, but not generally the deputies. They had their own side of training for that. And so now I work there doing the same thing, except I work there full-time, which is really fantastic. And it's, darn near close to a dream job. And it's a really wonderful situation that the sheriff's office invests in the community that way by making that training available, because it makes it's better for everybody. Everybody's safer and better off with that training out in the hands of good private citizens. So that's the kind of the teaching situation I have back home for all the foundational level training, as I teach out of the Public Safety Training Center in Clackamas.
I emailed my county sheriff and I asked him nicely to build me a range and give me a staff and a budget and things, and I'd be so gracious as to do this for him. I haven't gotten an email back.
No email back? No.
Lucky guy you are.
I absolutely. It is
cool.
A wonderful sheriff's office. Both our outgoing sheriff and our incoming one. I'm really, really excited to. It's an excellent organization. I'm really fortunate to work there and fortunate to work in the capacity that I do, because it's pretty close to a dream job. I go do gun stuff, deal with shooting, help people shoot safely and productively. In many ways, and all the support that you do to make that stuff continue on. That's what I get to do. So I work at the range and teach, which is cool.
So neat. Do you ever sneak over to the sworn LE side and say, hey, come here. Let me show you. I have a thing that I'd like to show you. Come here. You ever do that?
No, I don't do that. I'm really honored whenever they want to have me out to go sit in on some of the new hire training, which sometimes I've gotten to do and gotten to go sit in on some of the new hire and in-service training. And honestly, it's one of these things we have a kind of a dual FTU, the Firearms Training Unit, right? Like normally there's just an FTU and it's run by the deputies for the deputies, and we have that. Then we have the public range FTU, and so I'm kind of, I guess that's not my title. My title's public range training specialist, but basically that means I'm the head of the public range FTU. So I revise and write curriculum and all that stuff, and it's really neat. But that being the case, I haven't always directly gotten to observe what goes on precisely on the LE side, because it's two arms of the same body, but they're not the same arm. And so when I have gone over there, I got to tell you, I've been thoroughly impressed. The folks that do the training on the LE side, I have been very, very thought very well of what I've seen them doing on the range. So it's a cool place, cool situation. Really nice sheriff and sheriff's office. It's awesome.
It'd be really cool to data mine concealed carry statistics, accidental shooting statistics. It'd be neat to prove that concept on the national stage. And like every damn county should be doing it. I'm
not sure how we would come up with numerical representation of the effect that it has.
Right.
That
100% of statistics are made up.
I would. Right.
100% of statistics are made up, and 99% of the counties that let Kent and Gabe and TJ and people teach classes there do better. Right.
That's right.
Perfect. Sign the check.
That's right.
Point of order: I shouldn't be allowed to teach.
Well, you're not, but that's okay. There might be a county in Tennessee that needs an angry ginger.
Okay. So see, now we're speaking my language.
Right. So it's unique. It's unique to go from I had the same experience where you go from training on a national level, either as a student or as a host, or now I'm getting hosted in other places, which is a terrifying thought in and of itself. It's neat to shift gears, right?
Yeah.
To go from the foundational level stuff locally to going out to wherever you end up and being the fastest appendix draw in the West. How do you find that you're able to switch gears between training the new layman civilian and somebody like TJ, who's a rockin' awesome shooter every day?
Yeah. Well, it's been through time and just flight time doing it. It's definitely that specific thing is an aspect that is challenging, and I can do it just fine, but it's been through time accumulating skill at teaching those specific levels of training. So I taught the basic handgun class at our at the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office for about 7 or 8 years before I handed it off, and I've taught the intermediate and advanced classes for a bunch of years there now. So I kind of worked my way through it, and it was really my class that goes on nationally, Pistol Shooting Solutions, is the newest of all of those things, and so it's the one that I've kind of added onto the top, and you just get familiar with the material and the recurring problems that you see with people at different points, and what are the realistic expectations of this is what we're going to be working on with regard to draw in this setting, and then this is what we're going to be working on with regard to draw in this other setting, and then in this whole other setting we're going to be working on a whole different character of it's all the draw, but there are different parts of it, different aspects of the journey that everybody's on, and so that's kind of in a way it's kind of like the challenge of working with different individual students, but we're talking on a kind of a more macro level. You just got to be familiar with what does this level of training need, what do people commonly need, be on the lookout for those things, but not closed off to everything else, be ready to give them that stuff, have a realistic idea of what's going to get accomplished in that particular setting at that particular level.
Awesome. So as we're wont to do around here, we already have an active chat, and we have a great chat question from Bullet Sponge. He says, which class teaches him how to run flat out while shielding a bowling pin? Right.
To the best of my knowledge, none of them, including mine. Mine's the one that I know of where we will do something that is the closest to that. And the term, I'm being really pedantic here, right? Because I get what he's asking. The answer is Pistol Shooting Solutions, or at least as far as I know, is that. However, because we work on shooting on the run in that class, but I would characterize it as a gentle run, not a flat out run, a dead run, a full sprint That it's not those things. It's a gentler run. It is a run, but it's a gentler run. And I don't make you try to shoot a bowling pin. We shoot at something that gives us more feedback for shots that don't go in the area of a bowling pin. But what you're shooting at 5 yards in that class is also not a lot bigger than a bowling pin, and you can certainly take it there. So.
I like it. You and I are going to have some problems because I don't do middle runs. I don't do gentle runs. I either do stands or full out train going downhill. I don't have a lot of shifting speeds in between.
Okay.
But so that could get ugly. That bowling pin's going to fall over because it's going to be scared.
It'll be okay.
It'll be okay. Justin says waddle. He's going to waddle. So he is the gentleman who you're telling you about off air, whose right leg is all messed up. But he'll run flat out. I know he will. So a less silly question from Young Pei Chang is
Young.
I figured you knew Young.
I know Young. Young's awesome. Hi, Young.
Young says, did you notice anything that stuck out to you in teaching this year's generation of new shooters that you didn't see with most new shooters before? Or is it pretty much the same?
When you say new shoot, I'm going to answer the question a certain way, Young, and I think it may or may not be exactly what you meant when you asked it. When I hear new shooters, I'm not really teaching new shooters right now. I teach the intermediate and advanced class back home at present, and the ongoing training group, and then my national class. And so I don't currently teach the basic pistol class. Generally speaking, there is no question that there's a gigantic, with regard to that specific group of people, really new shooters right now. We probably all know there's a gigantic wave of fence sitters that just got pushed over the fence by 2020, and so they bought guns, and they're at this kind of it's the usual starting point when we see them for training. They're usually pretty conscientious. That's why they came asking for training in the first place. But they may really, really, really not have a lot of clue about how significant of an undertaking it is to get anywhere near, hey, I have a pistol and I'm like some remote semblance of competence with it. Is that like there's a lot of lack of perspective out there right now, and people not quite understanding how much of an undertaking even very basic handgun training actually is. And that's, of course, trainer people talking, because if we started looking at it statistically, quite honestly, I have a major soft spot for the simple fact that, it kind of looks like if you're like a trained I said that wrong. If you're just like a conscientious person that wants to do the right thing and not do the wrong thing and not hurt people who shouldn't be hurt, and you have a gun, mostly that adds up to not hurting the wrong people. I mean, I hope I would never be mistaken for anything but an advocate for training. But the simple fact is they're mostly not hurting other people. Mostly just by trying to do the right thing and not do the wrong thing. It mostly works out, sometimes not. Now, as far as Young, if you meant, what do I see as far as people in the class that you've taken a couple of times with me, new people to that class, I'm seeing a heck of a lot more red dots and a heck of a lot more capable guns that have been shoehorned into a concealed carry role. So last year, 1 year ago, at this time in 2019, I would have approximated that a third of Pistol Shooting Solutions students, and so these are in the big picture, dedicated enthusiast level practitioners on the national level, about a third of them were running guns with red dots in my class. This year, 1 year later, there have been several classes, it was up to 2/3. So I've seen an enormous jump up just in the last 1 year, and it was already running up a lot with red dots, but that big jump up there. And I have also seen the thing that I've been observing more generally a whole lot, which is everybody's getting a lot better. People are able to self-research, train themselves to a better degree. There's just more information out there. I mean, and I think it's, it's information exchange. It's because it's all out there to be had. If you're a quality discerner of information, of decent information, you can get a long ways in this, just like people can get a long ways in a lot of fields just from looking at, YouTube tutorials and just all the amazing information that's out there for free. But I've been seeing a lot more red dots, Young, and a lot of people getting a lot better. Those two things.
I like it. If I could add one thing, I'll say this. boy, the demographics are shifting in wild, wild ways for the brandy new people. I've been teaching a lot of brand new people, and there are no, if there were ever any, there are no stereotypes left. It's not 45 to 60-year-old fat white dudes anymore, or at least not just that. There's a high propensity of young professional women.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people with different political and socioeconomic backgrounds. There are a lot of very affluent people who are coming to the realization that their money has not bought them security, at least to the level that they thought it had. And they're a little bit less predisposed to getting their hands dirty and realizing that in this arena they might have to. What I also find very interesting is that there are an awful lot of people who were smart enough from the get-go to say, you know, I really, really could use some help with this. I'm beyond my depth here. And in years past, I feel as though some people came to me almost begrudgingly, right? So there was a certain percentage of people who, yeah, I guess I need to do this, that kind of thing. I cannot tell you, man, I've had so many dedicated, serious students in the last year. And I hate to say this, but fear is one hell of a motivator.
Yep.
And I'm not super happy about that. I don't like fear as a general term, but fear is one hell of a motivator when it comes to these people who are, gun in a box, right? They went and bought the. Right. I can't tell you how many of these Shield EZs. I got a Shield EZ in 100 rounds. Help me. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're right though too. These people have. A lot of them have no idea what they signed up for. I get them as best as you can do. You give them all the information up front. You try to talk to them. You try to have a kind of an interview before you even get on the range. And then you get on the range and you start doing the safety, the debrief stuff, the P's and Q's, and the all this information that it's important to front load people with.
Yeah.
And man, oh day, are they sitting there? And that is the moment where I think I mentioned earlier that I've at least helped a couple people figure out this wasn't for them. And, I had one guy look at me and say, why are you explaining to me what a tourniquet is and what it does? I'm like, buddy, because we're about to undertake firearms training, and you might be on the receiving end of a gunshot, whether you like it or not, self-inflicted or otherwise. You're at a shooting range. I don't know what to tell you. This is part of the show. And he's just absolutely floored by the idea that I would go through a medical brief with him at the beginning of a private lesson. And this thing scared him.
Yeah. And
this is regular everyday Joe kind of a guy. And he looked at this and he said, man, I don't know if this is for me. Okay. If that's what it takes. But,
well, there are a couple of dilemmas that we have going right now, and that's kind of one of them. As I'm hearing you describe that, I am very familiar with that kind of what you mean about that process where you're explaining all this stuff. And I see I've been struck by it a whole bunch of times just doing the work at the range part of my job lately, because there are all these people that call up or show up and they bought a gun and they say, and I need somebody to teach me how to use it, when they're booking an appointment at the shooting range. And we're going to help them as much as we can help them in the time that we have with them. But I was struck by what you said and what I've been seeing there a whole bunch over the last couple of months, which is that it is really, really this long, ongoing process of personal, direct hand-holding mentorship is really what it is. If somebody isn't like seriously self-motivated to seek out the information, qualify sources, read it thoroughly, and be, pretty mentally apt to boot, then I don't know, how well that's necessarily coming together. It's really, really tough when we lack the time with it. It's one thing if you got like a private lesson kind of setting, but in other settings, it's a lot rougher. Like the work, the shooting range part is that's where it's really tough. When somebody thinks that they're going to check into the range, I'm just going to like show them two things and then they know how to shoot. It's grossly insufficient to address the depth of subject that they need and want addressed, because they haven't been. I mean, see, where I went through a lot of this was, it wasn't, I mean, I came from hippies. It wasn't like I did a lot of shooting as a kid, but I at least got taught like what I would lovingly call the NRA school of gun handling, learning to shoot a BB gun and a 22 rifle. At least I got those things and learned to use those. And then by the time I was, 12 years old, I'm like buying all the Tactical Knives magazines because at least I can have a knife. And then as I'm getting to be about 15, I'm buying gun magazines because, in another 6 years or so, I'll be able to get handguns. And so I'm reading them, all cover to cover and, figuring out for myself through many articles and many little details, what is the difference between double actions and single action? What is DASA with a decocker only? What's DASA with a safety / decocker? What's double action only? What's striker fired? All these different action types. And I actually understood for myself when I was like 15 from reading all this stuff, what are these different things without having somebody show me? I mean, that's not like that big a thing to figure out, but I was pretty proud of myself at the time because it was like reading Greek, and I eventually figured out what they all did and how they worked. Well, so this, 60-year-old dude who just bought a gun and has been paying zero attention to guns his whole life, he's underwater.
Yeah.
They're usually really underwater just for the general knowledge. They if somebody doesn't know, they just don't know, and they need a whole lot, and it usually can't be administered in this really short time frame.
It's funny. I find myself having to relate the known to the unknown a lot and bring up their profession or their former profession if they're retired.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, ma'am, what is it that you did or didn't do for a living or do currently for a living? And they'll tell you something. They'll say, oh, I'm a X, right? And okay, great. You're an X. And one guy's, oh, I'm a machinist this recently. So, okay. I said, so you guys just bought a $100,000 Tormach. And all you have is the manual. And he looked at me and he goes, yup. I said, did Tormach ever send a rep out to your? He said, well, we didn't have Tormachs, we had XYZ. I said, fine, but when you bought a new machine, the company sent you out a sales rep and a tech rep to teach you how to use the new equipment, right? He said, yeah. And I said, how long was that process? He goes, oh, they were usually in the shop for 2 or 3 days. I said, okay, 2 or 3 days. And you already knew all the machinist stuff, didn't you? He goes, yeah. I said, so it took you 2 or 3 days to learn how to use a new tool that you had never previously been shown how to use. And that's something you already knew kind of how to drive, right? And this guy just, yeah. I said, what exactly do you think we're going to accomplish in 2 hours? Because I'm going to tell you what we are going to accomplish in 2 hours. And if it's not a long enough list, I can hit the beepy boopy thing and you can have your money back and then it'll be fine. But I mean, if you think that you're going to take 1 2-hour private handgun lesson and then go slay the dragons, boy, I'll tell you what, you are grossly mistaken. And, those people that then digest that, and like you said, they kind of sign on the dotted line, and it's more like a gym membership or a mentorship or whatever, like you said. It's more of an elongated learning process. And I do my very best to, well, I mean, here we sit, right? 60 free episodes of podcast content. Like if you want to hear about it, go get it. And by the way, all the people that have been on the show are great sources. So there's 60 vetted sources. Go. Yeah. Right. And once you're done with them, then come back to me and I'll give you some more. So it's a process, but I will tell you that it's been rewarding in the times of Rona and need and all this craziness to be at least anyway, a little spot of hope and show people just a bit of independence and a bit of self-reliance and self-sufficiency. That's always cool. Yeah. So
yeah, that foundational level stuff, man, that's really, I think, where it's at as far as help the most people, the best, the most is that's definitely where it's at. And, I'm struck by, what you say and what I'm saying. And you know what we sound like to me? A couple of enthusiasts. We sound like enthusiasts who are like, right. If you're going to do this, look, you got to go all this way. But you know what? I am definitely persuaded by the other viewpoint that's out there too. And it's okay because there's a lot of room for a lot of approaches. And that's one of the things I love about it is like I go home and do foundational training and then I go out on the road and, attend to the people who want to, polish their already pretty darn amazing level of skill capability, usually in the big picture. And I think that trying to, there's a lot to be said for the approach of get people the biggest bang for their recognize low and limited level of commitment and investment in the subject, and get them as much as they can in the amount that they will actually sign up for, and so that they actually get it. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And there's a lot to be said for the approach of emphasizing making something enjoyable enough that they have a fun and enjoyable experience, so they want to come back and train some more. Because it doesn't matter who you are, you're not getting the big enthusiast path done in one day. That's not happening. You might be able to get the extend the gun, point it at them, press the trigger, let's try to not jerk it thing, and a few other things going in a few hours. But you're just not going to get a couple days. It's not going to do the enthusiast thing unless they're self-motivated. So there's a lot to be said for help people at the level at which they want to be helped, which is totally not my personal thrust, but I also do it. And it is some people's personal thrust in training, and it is really, really productive.
That's entirely fair. And you just did a better job describing my own viewpoints than I did. So I appreciate that.
I am like you. I am not harshing on us. I'm just saying, there is more.
Yeah. No, you're entirely right. And I find that part of this, the lesser motivated, the spouse, the child, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, whoever is the one on the, I might could get into this, right? Emphasizing the enjoyment is where they really shine. Yep. And oftentimes the tables turn a time or two in the meantime, where now all of a sudden, he feels like he's had enough and she doesn't. She wants to keep going, or she feels like she's had enough and he doesn't. And it's just like, listen, it's just like any other sales or any other business or anything else. Figuring out people's motivations and where their standpoints are and where they're starting from is key to this. And Lord knows I don't have it all figured out. It's enjoyable to try though. So we've talked about the noobs. Let's talk about TJ, because dude can shoot, right?
Yeah,
and he's going to come to your whiz bang awesome sauce 3000 class, and he's going to expect what's happening on
It's a technical and tactical enhancement package for a well-founded defensive handgun practitioner. So the shortest words I could use would be it's high-performance concealed carry, kind of like what I said at the beginning. And in many ways, what it really boils down to is a whole lot of standing and shooting, and a whole lot of shooting combined with varying combinations of movement, barriers, and simulated bystanders in the downrange area. And so just targets. Not one of those, internet moments, right?
Yeah, no. You said simulated.
Not one of those. Yeah,
I didn't even breathe.
Yeah, just making sure everybody heard that word there, right?
The man said
and
simulated.
those things, and those things in combination with each other, and that is roughly the class in a nutshell. So it's a whole lot of get better at getting the gun out of the two places that you have it when violence starts, which is generally the holster or a ready position, getting it presented from there, doing some really, really quality shooting that we work a whole lot on, and being able to combine that with the main avenues of movement and barrier use that may come up, as well as some pretty unlikely ones.
Awesome. So I always find myself saying this when I start, I guess, grilling you about your class for a minute. So keep in mind a couple of things. Number one, if you figured me out, right, I am an enthusiast, so I'm really interested in the class generally.
You wouldn't have a podcast without it being an enthusiast.
Absolutely. That being said, what would you say are your priority skill sets, or your priority, the things that you really wish a high-level concealed carry practitioner could do? What are those things?
That's a great question.
Did you say the number 2 in there? Was that 2 things? Is that what you said?
No, I said, what are the things that the skill sets that you wish a concealed carrier could do? What are the priorities?
Well, okay. Well, I got to stop and think about it, because let me answer the question the way it was asked. So you said skill sets. So we say skill sets. I'm putting that somewhat separate from the larger, more front end areas of tactics, and before that, observation and decision making. So like those things have to be there first. But when we're talking hard skills, right? So hard skills with the handgun, for high performance concealed carry practitioner, huge, very, very, very hugely, I love to see a super sharp draw. Really, really. As private cops don't get to walk around in the world with the gun in their hand because they think maybe I'm going to need it soon.
Right.
That has changed a lot. It's probably going to change more in the future. They still, even in the present situation, have a lot more ability to do that than private citizens do. I am not going to be able to I'm going from point A to point B, or I'm dealing with some person, I'm not going to have the foreknowledge that is going to allow me to justify preemptively, in effect, preparing for use of deadly force or threatening deadly force or any of that stuff. So getting the gun out of the holster is really huge. That's pretty gigantic. And it would be a lot better if you saw the problem coming and could figure things out ahead of time to not be there, or at least get the gun out before you're going to need it. But failing those things, or not having the opportunity for those things, which is also very common, being able to get the gun very, very precipitously out of the holster is really good. And then the shooting. Those two things, because I think those things are going to come first. And I would put in parentheses right behind the holster, ready position presentations. Also those. I think that as a private citizen, you're probably going to want to emphasize the holster a lot, but ready position, really excellent ready position presentations that are, I'm not super doctrinaire on ready positions. There are a whole lot of them, and for good reason, and you need more than one. You need probably a small handful of them. What they all got to have in common is finger in register and unobstructed vision. And there are some extremely, extremely powerful fundamental dynamics that give rise to the need for that, but you've got to have that ready position presentation, whatever form it takes, but from a finger and register vision, unobstructed position, you got to have that, just like you got to have the holster deployment. And then it is, in large part, it's about the shooting. The things that I would add to that is some familiarity with shooting in combination with movement. And that's a big statement, because in combination with movement includes a whole lot of different degrees and characters of movement in a lot of different circumstances. And barrier use. There are some underlying human dynamics in barrier use that come from the shape of a human being and how it works, with eyes on a head, the head at the top of the torso, the physical form and operating nature that a human being has, with the head, the brain within the head, the eyes in the front of the head, the body on top of the head with 2 arms and legs, and the body that moves the way it does. That gives rise to a certain set of incredibly powerful dynamics driven by line of sight and the resultant decision making. And if you can learn those things and train in accordance with them, there's a pretty darn powerful stuff you can insulate from having exploited against you, and really actively seek to exploit against the adversary, because there's some pretty pervasive mistakes that are made.
Interesting.
That stuff. And that is in large part why I am personally so excited about pistol shooting solutions, because it is kind of the niche best move you forward as a practitioner, in my estimation, from the generic, hey, you're a good, well-founded defensive handgun practitioner. Now, a lot of people are a lot more developed than that, right? A whole lot. But if we said somebody who's been through, several days of defensive handgun training, so well-founded defensive handgun practitioner, and now we're going to try to move them forward, this body of material is kind of what I have put together pretty specifically for that purpose.
So I'm very tempted to ask you to expand on your line of sight with regard to decision making. I feel like that may be some of the secret sauce from the course that we should just let alone and let people come find it. But I'm intrigued.
Yes, that's largely true, and it's more complicated than we're going to be able to easily describe in this setting. It's a pretty in-depth instructional block where we get to it on the kind of the second half of the second day of that class. It is essentially, I'm sure that you will be at least somewhat, if not completely, familiar with the underlying issues. But basically, you got people prematurely mounting the gun, creating an artificial horizon line that blocks their vision, messes up their decision making by blocking some of what they may need to see to make a good decision to shoot or not shoot in the first place, maybe delaying that decision, maybe helping them make the wrong decision. And then also, parallel to that, is the issue of the same thing, people prematurely mounting the gun, creating that same artificial horizon line, and then they do not locate the ongoing threat that they've already decided to shoot, like ongoing gunfight thing, and then they don't find the threat because they're blocking their vision. And that's a big problem. So that I don't want to try to go into it more than that. That probably conjures up the set of issues that you're talking about. But there are some very, very powerful things. And what we end up doing in the second half of the second day of pistol shooting solutions, what it roughly amounts to, I call it the barrier use segment. But what it really is it's a solo treatment of fire and maneuver.
Okay. Now I don't know if I'm on the same page or not, but I'm on the right book. So I see where you're going. I like it. That sounds very similar to some things that I've seen done in other places and some stuff that I try to implement myself. Just, it's interesting how, generally speaking, people arrive at the same problems and then come up with different ways of solving them, right? So that's really neat. Who is capable of taking this class? Who's
somebody somebody needs to be a well-founded defensive handgun practitioner. And by that, I mean, so very specifically, somebody needs to be able to actually carry out and execute the 4 firearm safety principles. Not like they regurgitate them, but you know what I mean? Like they can, no BS, go there on the line and do the right thing with their muzzle and trigger finger and holster work all day long. And they've been taught to do that. And they're not completely unfamiliar with the live fire environment. It kind of, but usually that goes along with it, right? If somebody's got the basic, safety skills and gun handling skills, they can keep the gun running. They have already been taught to draw from a holster. My class is not the day to first learn to draw from a holster, because what we're going to try to do in that class is take your existing perfectly good draw and make it that much better is what we're going to try to do. And so that is not the day to teach you the draw. So you need to be a well-founded defensive handgun practitioner. And by that, I mean, you have formal training. You have been to probably more than one day of formal training. You can keep your gun running. You can draw and holster safely. You have been taught to do those things and didn't just like come up with it out of nowhere. And you're not unfamiliar with the live fire environment, and you can observe the 4 firearm safety principles all the time. That's roughly what you need to have. More than that is good, but that's kind of the intended starting point.
Are you looking for a specific set of prereqs, or?
So the prereqs that I put in the class description are roughly, the kind of some of the boilerplate legal stuff, like you need to be a U.S. citizen and 21 years old, and if you seem like you're unsafe or mentally unsound, I'm going to send you away. And then beyond that, you need to be able to safely draw from a holster. You need to be able to continuously observe 4 firearm safety principles in the live fire environment, and you need to be able to hit a 6x6 head box. So that's like the head of a USPSA or IDPA cardboard silhouette on demand at 10 yards. And without any particular other kind of pressure added to it. If it's just core basic marksmanship ability, you can hit that. I think we can get started with you. I think we can do something productive. The less underwater you are for trigger control, the better. And to be fair, that start point, when I've seen people show up just barely at that start point, a lot of the class, they're kind of underwater for trigger control. Because kind of the story with trigger control is, first you can shoot like this little one-hole group with no added factors of difficulty. But as you add any kind of factors of difficulty or complication in all the ways those get added, whether it's distance, time, mentally being bunged up, now you got to draw from the holster and fire one shot instead of just stand there and fire one shot. Any complication at all, it all taxes the trigger control ability. And so we do so much in that class with other things driving the process harder or taxing the process, whether that's working quickly out of the holster, trying to run the gun that much faster as far as firing it goes, but still accurately, any of the movement, additional movement in combination with the shooting or barriers or the simulated bystanders, all of that stuff taxes the trigger control. And so if somebody's kind of just barely there on trigger control to start with, they end up getting kind of taxed to a large extent. And I try to help them, but trigger control problems are difficult, and you can't just necessarily snap your fingers and fix it by saying the right thing. You try, and that has some effectiveness, but it doesn't just solve the problem. And there's just so much going on. They may need to spend some time on their own getting their trigger control worked out. So can't
you just stand behind them with a bullhorn and yell at them until they get better? No,
I haven't tried that way.
Huh.
1 out of 1 gingers know that it works.
I obviously don't know what I don't know.
No, so inside joke. Actually, what's funny is I made an inside joke about certain firearms training that then dovetailed into an inside joke about TJ and I's personal life. which is that when TJ stands behind me on the range and screams at me to do better, I just do better.
Cool.
He literally just goes, "Stop sucking. You can go faster, Mr. Instructor." He always does this, and I get all mad. And, like, oh, look, it worked.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a thing. But
Cool.
what I was referring to was firearms classes with 33 people on the line and one guy with a bullhorn walking up and down them going, "Don't jerk your trigger," and then keep walking. And like, but how? But what thing? But
I feel like there's only one person that is qualified enough to do that.
Stop. Okay, moving on.
I'm just saying, I would pay good money just to listen to him yell at me. That's all I'm saying.
I don't get any of these inside jokes, and I don't need to, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all
I'm
good.
not usually one for inside baseball, but it just kind of came up. Recently I was involved in a situation where somebody was just hollering at somebody to fix their trigger, and I'm like, show them. For fuck's sake, stop, you know.
I know. Isn't that one of the things that just drives you kind of nuts? Is it's like, you need to do this. Yes, right. Thank you. Now, by what mechanism do I accomplish that? What do I need to do or stop doing to get the effect that we want to get here? I mean, seriously, how much of that? I mean, we're kind of making a joke because obviously it's kind of like there's some horror stories and some people who don't do it so well, and it's not like the normal way it's done. But then you got some jerk that's literally running around with the bullhorn and 33 people and just yelling at him. But it's about the issue is it's a lack of process focus, and it's an outcome focused instead. Make your hit, slow down, get your hit. Okay, cool, great. How am I actually doing that? It's almost like another iteration of the never-ending iterations of process focus versus outcome focus. Almost.
Well, I think it also speaks to the overall quality of the instructor as well, right? Yeah, they could be the best instructor on the planet, but and Gabe, you kind of brought up the point, or at least the sentiment of the point that I'm making here, and that is, there is a law of diminishing returns with regards to how engaged a student is going to be. You can only get them to learn as much as they're willing to be engaged, right?
Yeah.
You can only get them engaged if you as the instructor are equally engaged and kind of leading by example. Mm-hmm. If you show them that I, as the instructor, am inherently interested and vested in your betterment, right, and the enhancements to your performance, then they too will follow suit, right? At least they have a higher propensity for doing that, right?
I think that's exactly right.
So it's just the way it goes. I can't understand how people can sit there and call themselves a firearms instructor when all they're going to do is be a voice behind a bullhorn.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
There's a difference between the way, don't make it about the bullhorn. Make it about what happens after the thing is called out, right? Like, hey, we got a problem. And then the guy, it's different if the guy goes, hey, we got a problem. He hands the line to his AI. He pulls that student off and says, come here, let's dry fire some stuff on your trigger. Let me show you where the wall really is versus where you think it is. Let's talk about this. As opposed to the guy who just keeps walking by the student who's failing time after time after time after time after time and goes, keep at it, don't trap that trigger, and just throws these tropes and euphemisms at them. And this poor guy's, he didn't know what the hell the trigger was 12 hours ago, and now he's being told not to slap it. The poor guy lacks context. In anything else. It's imagine teaching a kid to drive. It's hey man, look, you don't need to ride that clutch. And the poor kid's sitting there going, which one's the clutch? That's the third one on the left, right? Like, they're still remembering what the basics of the operation are.
Yeah.
And then you're giving them an under-detailed but overly kind of tropish explanation for how to fix the problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There are definitely a lot of different. I don't know about a lot, but there are different ways that firearms instructors come to be, or come to be teaching, and I think it has varied throughout time a little bit. And I mean, I don't know. It's easy for me to get up on my high horse about you're not passionate enough. Well, I don't know. Where am I going to be in 10 or 15 years? I don't know. Maybe my fire dies out or something. I mean, I have long thought that there is no way I could work this hard teaching if I didn't love it, which is absolutely true.
Yep.
But I had heard in one of the first places, one of my formative schools that I came up through, Oregon Firearms Academy out here in Oregon, obviously. I went to their instructor development class a whole bunch of years ago, and in that class they told us that not a week goes by that they don't get about 1 or 2 calls a week from some random person who is literally cold calling a firearms instruction school saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about opening a business. I was thinking about firearms instruction. So what do I need to do to learn how to teach this?" And I was like, huh? What? Like, Who would do that? Who would ever call that up? I mean, like, that would be like if I was like, what I ought to do to make some money is teach scuba. I'm afraid of the water. I don't want to go underneath it, but you know what? That would be a good business. And so I'm going to go, what do I do to teach it? But that doesn't even occur to me because obviously lives and safety hang in the balance. So top job is required. And that means that I have to go learn a whole lot before I could possibly even think about teaching. And I don't mean like I took the basic, intermediate, and advanced class at some local school. That means like I'm like I don't even know the words, right? I don't even know what I don't know. Some master level accomplished diver who's actually able to teach that. I mean, it wouldn't even occur to me to teach that until I'm way, way, way up there. And then, and so I had heard this at that school, and it was like totally weird. And I was like, who in the heck would ever make that call? I don't get it. Later, over the course of my time, I've met 1 or 2 people like that who I kind of detected as they were coming through a couple of classes that is like, oh yeah, they said they wanted to teach other people. And I finally met these people. I finally did. And they kind of drifted away because I think what they saw was just how deep a subject it was and how a couple of classes wasn't going to cut it to actually credibly be able to teach it. And you might be like kind of a pseudo competent, pseudo snake oil level person at the local level or something, teach people who don't know any better, but you're not really going to build any kind of, I don't think any kind of serious business over time. There's just way too much competition. There are way too many excellent firearms instructors to make that stuff fly now. I think you could 20, 25 years ago for sure. Now, not nearly as much.
Yeah, it's, it almost surprises me still, but then I remind myself that there's instructions on Pop-Tarts. So, yeah. There are those people in the world, I suppose.
It's scary. It's scary to me because I'm a little younger in my trading lineage than you are, and those I think the people that come to this come to it begrudgingly. Or it turns into a thing that happens naturally over time for them, as opposed to anybody who ever sets out and goes, my plumbing business and my T-shirt printing business and my this and that failed. WTF? I'm going to go be a firearms trainer next. Let's see how that goes.
I certainly didn't get into it with any intention of being an instructor. It was the path that many of us have where, you go to school, you're a good diligent student, you keep coming back, you keep coming to class, you keep doing a good job and studying and improving yourself. At some point, you're getting abducted to be a volunteer instructor with that organization. It's just the way it works. And I was really ambivalent about that idea at first, decided to take the plunge because I had gone through a lot of training on my own dollar, and eventually it's kind of getting to the end of that and going, I'm not just going to pay hundreds of dollars a day to come to firearms training over and over and over again. I mean, I took classes multiple times for sure, but at some point there's an end to it, and I'm not just going to keep doing it over and over and over and over and over. And that was a way that I could continue to be involved in it and thus learn without paying money. So, okay, sure. Let me come and help. I'll come and help. Cool. And it went on from there. And I've been really ambivalent about teaching in the larger sense. I kind of sort of got dragged into it to a degree because I, for a long time was of the, why do you need to learn from me? You don't. There are any number of combat experienced folks out there that you could learn from, and that's better, right? But at some point I was persuaded by people who knew me that no, you do a really good job. You need to come and teach. We're abducting you. You're recruited. So there I was.
Voluntold.
Kind of.
You got
Sort of.
voluntold.
Sort of. Yeah. Sort of.
It scares. One thing that scares me is I'm in a position at a couple different ranges, and I help figure out training and hosting and training coordinator, that kind of thing, as a volunteer position for some gun clubs. It's already has happened that I've gotten kind of a similar phone call to what you just described, but hey, I'm gonna come over there and teach a class. Oh, are you? Okay. I didn't know you had a business. I didn't know you had an LLC or any kind of insurance for this. I didn't know you had. I was entirely unaware of all of this. I didn't know you were a firearms trainer. Well, I'm not, but I've seen what you got going on over there. I think I'm gonna give it a crack. It's like I can only imagine watching your plumber install your hot water heater and going, I'm gonna buy me a white panel van and fill it with some wrenches and shit and see what happens. I don't know where that mindset, where that particular
people taking career advice from their magic 8-ball.
Well, I don't want to call it. I guess it is arrogance in some way, but I don't want to call it that. It's almost that just undeserved confidence sometimes, where somebody just thinks that naturally, I'll be able to figure anything I try to do out. Okay, but this may or may not be one of those things that it's appropriate for you to learn on the fly without a competent. It's different if you want to volunteer your time or get paid to give your time as an AI or something like that, and come along through the process and get some apprenticing and maybe get allowed to teach a block here and a block there and demo here and demo there and staple this target, and someday you get the old, like, hey man, you're running a class today, God bless you. That's a little different than just deciding you're gonna. I mean, I really like deer hunting too. I guess I could hang out a shingle tomorrow that says I'm a deer hunting guide. I can show you how not to shoot all kinds of deer. I mean, how many deer can you not shoot? We can do this all day.
Here's lesson 1: things to not do.
Shit not to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So let's talk for a minute about some of the things that your training is a little bit better known for. I understand there's a series of pins that if you're really fast and really pew-pewy and really accurate, you can. There's the light pin. There's the turbo pin. You want to take us? Those are your. Every good national instructor has their standards or their calling card kind of thing, right. and you have yours. So you'll do it way more justice than I will. So please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I have personally experienced the power of the plastic metal token of achievement that is awarded to students who are highly motivated enthusiasts, and so I do the same with mine because that's really all it's about, is helping people realize goals and then destroy them is really what it's about, and thus increase the capability of people to defend themselves and their loved ones. That's really it. So when I have people who are a lot like me and they come to Pistol Shooting Solutions because they're an enthusiast, we've got these pin awards, these performance pins that are just recognition of achievement in the straightforward stand and shoot technical tests that culminate from each of the main stand and shoot instructional blocks in the class. And so that's addressing the bill drill, the failure to stop, the immediate incapacitation, and the split bill drill. And I can explain those more if you want, but those are the 4 drills that those address. And depending on how you score on them, that'll give rise or not to one or another pin award. There are 3 pins. There's the dark pin, the light pin, and the turbo pin. The dark pin is what I would lovingly call a tactical level of proficiency at the core skill of drawing and shooting a single thread at 7 yards. And I say that lovingly because I think anybody with the technical skill level of the dark pin is, I mean, they're going to stand way in excess of the technical skill requirements of any remotely likely handgun self-defense shooting, and quite frankly, a lot of pretty unlikely ones as well. And as you move up to light pin is what I would lovingly call an early stage of excellence at those core skills of drawing and shooting a handgun at single thread at 7 yards. And generally speaking, light pin is definitely an early stage of excellence at those core skills. I mean, I definitely do mean excellence, and there's a lot further that you could go from there, but that is a very excellent level of skill. And generally speaking, the best pure tactical background shooters that I generally speaking see in class are in the light pin category. Those are like the best ones usually. And for what it's worth, of people who shot those tests who I know were classified in USPSA also, I've seen B through M class shooters both win and fail to win the light pin in class testing. And then above that is the turbo pin, which is modeled after a rather large ballpark of upper class, like master, grandmaster level performance, national champion level performance. It's kind of all those things as it would be recognized in the shooting sports, but within this very, very narrowly measured test, right? This is like none of the shooting sports have as narrow a test as I do, where you're going to draw your gun from a holster and shoot one target with between 2 and 6 shots. Like almost none of, like basically none of them. Like no skill classification test of any kind in any of the shooting sports are that short. So mine are certainly much more narrowly measured than that. But the point is, turbo, as far as what it does measure, is intended to ballpark master, grandmaster, national champion, international champion, somewhere in that fairly large ballpark level of performance. And for what it's worth, of shooters who were also classified in USPSA who won the turbo pin, I've seen master and grandmaster level shooters both win and fail to win the turbo pin. And so the idea is that within the narrow scope of these short form drills, say like failure to stop, the good old classic draw, shoot 2 body, 1 head if they have not dropped by the time you get up to the head, then if you actually are facing such a dangerous situation in your life that you have to pull out your handgun and shoot a real person in real life, the mismatch I want there for you is that you are better on your worst day than the other person ever dreamed of being on their best day. And being able to cough up what would be, if they cared to do it, would be something like master, grandmaster, national champion level of performance. I mean, it would be great if that person who steps to you and threatens your life is facing from you, as bad or worse than a national champion would deliver. That's the kind of mismatch I'd like.
So I'm glad we got to this topic because Gabe, I've got your website up here, and for those listening, Gabe,
it was hacked.
GabeWhiteTraining.com. No, I didn't touch it.
It wasn't hacked.
I didn't touch it, I swear. So GabeWhiteTraining.com for those listening and those watching. It's also down in the description below. But you have a sentence here that I absolutely fell in love with. There is no such thing as being too good at fighting for your life with a pistol.
Yes.
And to me, that speaks volumes because Kent and I have actually had this conversation. At what point is there a law of diminishing returns, right? We focus on drawing as fast as we can and shooting as fast as we can. That while we are able to do everything, at various, stages of light speed or warp speed, whatever you want to call it, at some point do we get so pigeonholed on focusing on these individual time hacks, right, and getting better and faster in those individual aspects, do we lose sight of the bigger picture, and that is actually fighting for your life, right? Do we allow ourselves to narrow our focus so much that we lose sight of the bigger picture? And that's certainly a conversation for another day, but it's definitely a conversation that Kent and I argue about on occasion. I'm curious with regard to the 4 drills that you have here for your technical skills tests. What exactly did you use to derive the various qualification standards that would equal one of the different pins, right? So like if you,
yes.
and I say that because like if you talk to guys like Jedi's a good friend of ours, definitely a friend of the show. Kent and I have both taken his training, but when you listen to him talk about his black belt standards, He's like, why did I pick 7.5 seconds? Because it's between 5 and 10, right? So it makes perfect sense, right? For if you really want to be a pragmatist and be very simple about it. But I'm curious, what
Sure.
did you use to set your standards with?
Yeah. So I consider them goals, not standards, and that's I'm not the person who has to run around saying it's a magazine, not a clip. It's a magazine, not a clip. It's a magazine, not a clip. I don't have to run around to everybody doing that. So it's okay that you call it standards. I'm just saying they're not really standards, because to me standards is that's like a morally or professionally obligated level of performance that if you can't do that, you're wrong, and you need to go over there and fix yourself and come back, and maybe you won't get kicked out of the unit, lose your job, kicked out of class, you can't carry a gun anymore, whatever it would be, right? So to me that's a standard. This is a different thing than that. This is just difficult goals intended to motivate enthusiasts. There are a lot of people that have shot for their lives and won or will in the future, and they're not getting anywhere near a dark pin. So there's a lot of ingredients in self-defense beyond the technical skill. It's just goals for enthusiasts, right? So, but how I came up with the numbers specifically, I came up with the turbo pin numbers first, and because I expected those to be awarded pretty infrequently, then there needed to be some sort of intermediary goals, and I kind of extrapolated the numbers from there. We could look at, I could probably let me run through, how about the turbo numbers for all 4 drills, and just those, and I can kind of talk extrapolation a little bit. So Bill Drill has a pretty long-standing benchmark of 2 seconds in the competition world. Is a kind of a long-standing rough benchmark of master, grandmaster, upper class performance capability with race gear to shoot an all alphas Bill Drill in 2 seconds or less at 7 yards. So now what you'll see on that page also is there is a 1/4 second bonus or subtraction for using concealment or level 3 retention gear on any of those tests where you shoot from concealment or level 3 retention gear. And that is because I have a big tent philosophy, and I don't want you to, if you come to my class and you're not carrying, this pseudo concealed carry race holster type of thing from Appendix, then you can just forget about doing well on the test. It's not happening. I don't like having that kind of philosophy. I have a big tent philosophy. If somebody wants to bring their open gun, their limited gun, their production run out of their competition rig because that's what they care about, cool. If people want to carry their open top, unconcealed range holster because that's what they like to use, cool, that's fine. Obviously I'm shooting from concealment because I don't care about not shooting from concealment. I just don't care about those other things, but that's me, and everybody doesn't have to be like me. So there is that 1/4 second bonus in there for the concealment. But so Bill Drill, this is final net score. 2 seconds or less is turbo on the Bill Drill, and that breaks down to the sub benchmarks of a 1 second drawn first shot, also a long-standing benchmark for GM type of performance in the competition world, and 0.2 splits to the A zone at 7 yards. That is a long-standing benchmark for upper class performance in the competitive world. Now, absolutely, people can and do split a lot faster than that. When you're talking splits, a lot is like 0.05, right? I mean, we're not talking large portions of time, but that 0.2 is kind of considered the threshold of, hey, if you're shooting accurately at 0.2 at an A zone at 7 yards, you're running the gun just fine. You're doing very well with that, and that's a very realistic thing for people to seek. So there you go. There's the Bill Drill. So failure to stop is 1.7 seconds. That's failure to stop is the draw and shoot 2 body, 1 head. So you got that same 1 second drawn first shot, 0.2 split to the body, and then a 0.5 transition up to the 4-inch circle in the head, which is the no penalty zone on my target in the head in class. So 1.7 seconds. That one is based very directly off of the published scores on some old iterations of the old school IDPA classifier that Dave Savigny, Robert Vogel, and Ben Steger all shot. All 3 of those guys, incredible shooters, some of the most incredible shooters of our time, multi-time national and international level champions, all of them awesome. If that's right, if we could run around with our concealed carry gear exerting what would be considered upper class hits and time in the competition world, that's the hits and time I want to throw. That's it right there, right? So that 1.7 seconds comes directly from them. Those guys, I added up their scores, I averaged them. If I remember correctly, I'm probably off by a couple of hundreds here. They were like 1.58 for that task. So we've got a little smaller head zone, so probably we ought to bump it up a little bit to 1.7, and that kind of breaks down in a nice formulaic way to 1 second, 0.2 split, 0.5 transition up to the head. Okay, so then we have immediate incapacitation, which is draw and shoot 2 straight to the head. So that one I modeled directly off of the estimated formulaic breakdown for shooting for winning a fast challenge coin. So that breakdown has always traditionally been held to be 1-5 draw, 0.5 split to the 3x5, and then you got the reload, and then that's in a certain amount of time, and then splits the body in a certain amount of time, and that all adds up to a little bit under 5 seconds. But it's the head hits that I'm interested in here, and so I kind of went with that as pretty much the numbers for this. So 1-5 drawn for a shot at the turbo level, and that's to a 4-inch circle, so a lot smaller. In fact, about a fifth the size of that A zone in the body, and then a 0.5 split to the same target. So 2 seconds is the number there. And then split bill drill is kind of like a modified version of the bill drill. It's a bookend with failure to stop. It's 4 body, 2 head, so kind of like failure to stop, but a more intense version of it. And that one is 2.6 seconds, and it's the same exact formulaic breakdown. 1 second drawn first shot to the body, 0.2 splits to the body, 0.5 transition, and split up to the head circle. So they all break down that way. And then there are different formulaic breakdowns for light pin and dark pin, and they're all hard. I always say in class that it is abnormal that everybody walks with a pin. That's pretty atypical. That's actually a lot more rare than somebody winning a turbo pin. It's a lot more common that someone wins a turbo pin in a class than everyone walks away with a pin at the end of day 2. That second one is a lot less common than somebody won a turbo pin, like by a lot. I think that's happened 2 or 3 times, and there have been about 22 or 23 turbo pins awarded, something like that. So, they're tough. They're tough, and one of the things I enjoy the most about them is it gives me all these repeated chances to perform under stress, because I go take the test right along with everybody else and write down the score, and you can watch me succeed or fail, which is fun and very good for me.
That whole that D word, demo, that's a thing. That's important. So
yes.
What is the correct targetry if somebody wanted to slam their head against the wall until they figured this out?
What I most typically use in class is a USPSA target, so using the A zone in the body as the body target for the no penalty zone. And if you look at my website at GabeWhiteTraining.com, and then you go look at the performance awards page, you'll see a complete breakdown of all the terms of the test. I don't think will be any questions if you read all that, if you want to go work on it. But basically, that's what I most commonly use is a USPSA target, metric target with the A zone in the body, and then I put a 4-inch white circle sticker in the center of the head. Alternate targets that are allowed, and if we end up with these in classes, we roll with them, and once in a while we do. IDPA targets are fine, which has the 8-inch circle in the body. We'll just score it same as the USPSA one. The 8-inch circle in the body is the no penalty zone, just like the A zone in the body is on the USPSA one, even though, yes, they're a slightly different size and shape. Need a little bit of logistical flexibility in case I ended up with different targets at some venue. And an alternative to the 4-inch circle in the head is a 3x5 card. If you want to use a 3x5 card, that's totally fine too. But 3x5 or 4-inch circle in the head, 8-inch circle, or USPSA metric A zone in the body.
So a regular old IDPA target would work then, because you got the 4-inch circle for the down zero.
Now they do. Yes, now they do. They didn't have that circle when I started the class, but now they do, and you definitely could use that.
I happen to know where there's a barn full of old beat-to-shit IDPA targets that might just get put into service for something.
Cool.
So
cool.
It's neat to see everybury's different version. There's the fast coin stuff. There's the black belt patch. There's this. There's the belt buckles and the various things that are given out. I like that you have 3 levels to yours. Scott does something similar, right? That it's neat to give people kind of a barometer.
Oh yeah.
I would say personally though that I don't like to focus on just the test when I come to class, right? I like to ingest the entirety of the POI and all the information. And I find that when I start getting worried about, I'm going to go see so-and-so for such and such a thing, I fuck it up. Because I do. That's what happens, right?
I understand.
I get that focused on that.
Yep.
And, I wish I wouldn't do that. It just happened to me the other week, right?
It's almost like another way of saying outcome focus, not process focus, right?
Yeah. That's that whole, the minute you get into hurry, try hard mode,
right?
You start bumble fucking all kinds of stuff that you should be able to take for granted every other day.
Yeah.
So, Yeah.
Well, what you said is very much my vision of the way the pins fit in class. Is they are one layer out of a lot of layers in that class, and the true goal is the technical and tactical enhancement package that is Pistol Shooting Solutions, and not the pin awards. Though I love the pins, I love shooting for them myself. I love the joy and all the drama that comes along with, not bad drama, but good drama that comes along with students doing it. And I think it provides, it's clear to me by this point that it provides a very significant draw for students to come to the class. That is true. And, people do get wrapped up in the sense of accomplishment and trying to do better. And that's the whole point. That is the point of them, is the point to hook people into them, myself included, so that you want to do better and you do work to do better. And then you go get to enjoy it, because then you can go demonstrate what you can do and prove it to yourself and others. And that's nice. And that's really what it's for. But there are so many layers going on in that class that are frankly so much more important than the pins, that I would feel, and once in a while somebody is really wrapped up in the pins, pin, no pin, which pin. And I would feel bad for somebody if their happiness with the class completely hinged on what pin, no pin, yes pin, no, which pin, because it's just one layer, and probably it's one of the least important layers. I mean, I think they're all important. That's why they're all in there, but that's one out of a whole bunch of layers.
So I know you're not going to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
It's going to make me laugh. Who's the most famous firearms trainer to have failed a pin test?
Failed a pin test?
Yeah, didn't get no pin.
I don't think that there is one. I have had a handful of famous firearms trainers come through my class, to my great honor, but none of them have failed to win a pin.
Any of them expect to get the turbo pin and didn't?
I don't recall that they addressed it that way. They addressed it, as I remember, the more learned and mature way, which is they were there to to attend the training, to do the training, and then the test was going to measure some skills in a setting that is oriented toward hardcore enthusiasts, and it's going to be really difficult, and it was, and they did great, and it was. That's the story, man. Right? It's like, it's never as good as you want it to be. I mean, it certainly isn't for me. Oh my God, the demos. Oh God, the demos.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Things happen in demos.
Oh, they do, but that's it's one of the, I think it's one of the greatest perks to getting to the point where you have been drawn into the teaching side of things, that you get to demo now. And so that means you get to have this whole new challenge and thus learn to meet it when other people don't get to. If they don't demo, then they don't get to learn to meet it as well. So it's it's something that's a very nice for you if used well.
Yeah, absolutely. And nice for your student is on here talking about how all your demos, even the bad ones, look like humble brags.
I probably accidentally turned him into that. It's like I definitely mess up demos, because I shoot demos that are hard enough that I'm gonna mess some of them up, and then I do what you can do with that, which is to turn it into a teachable moment. If I mess it up, I got to figure out, what did I mess up? Why did I mess it up? Maybe I try it again, or maybe I don't, but at least be able to make the point of that went badly because, or this went well because. I mean, you got to roll with it. And if I guess I would say I could tighten the demos by making them easier, but I don't want to do that.
No, hell no, that'd be no fun.
Well, I mean, it's, to the point you made, it's like, even when you mess up, right? You want your worst day to be better than that person is on their best day, right?
That's it. Yes.
I mean, that
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. My thumb got snagged on my shirt, clearing the draw, but
and you still put it in the eyeball in 1.35.
Exactly. Okay, there's the humble brag.
I said you.
Yeah, I don't know if we've tested that much. I'll try it.
No, when TJ misses the eyeball, he just goes ginger gorilla and throws the whole gun and murders everyone.
It looks like that scene from Saving Private Ryan when the German soldier and the sergeant, like, they both ran out of ammo and weaponry. And they start just throwing their guns at each other, and then their helmets, and taking their belts off and throwing their belts. That's pretty much what happens.
No.
Every now and then you gotta unleash the trunk ginger. I'm just saying.
If you didn't think targets were alive, when you see TJ look at a cardboard silhouette target and the target becomes so afraid that it leaves the range, it just fucks right off. It goes, nope, I'm out. Off it goes. You go, that was interesting. I didn't know targets can walk. That thing said, I'm out of here. I'm going.
Don't make me do crazy eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to go down that road.
So one of the things that demoing does do, though, is gives your student a sense of humility sometimes a little bit, right? Directed at you, not directed towards themselves. It shows that you're human as well. It shows you're because the God complex thing needs to be broken early, right? Anybody who thinks you're a god or anything like that to me just gets like. And anytime somebody in a class looks at me and goes, "Whoa," I'm like, no.
Yep.
I'm a sophomore. There are plenty of graduates of various like collegiate degrees. I'm just a sophomore. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not pretend we're something we're not here. This is what I just demonstrated to you was what I would call a level of proficiency that you should attain, not some godlike thing that you'll never be able to do. That's silliness. I don't like that. So it's valuable to the student as well. TJ, you had a question. What do you got, man?
No, I was gonna go down the route of talking about Gabe's charity of choice because I kind of have a surprise for everybody. So,
what do you got?
Well, let's talk about Gabe's charity of choice first.
Well, the surprise is ruined. Actually, the surprise was ruined. We told Gabe there would be.
He emailed about it ahead of time. The
surprise is
for the guests or for the audience that they'll see. And maybe Gabe will get a kick out of it too. But go ahead, Gabe.
Well, they the good folks here at Sling'N asked me to come up with a firearms related charity, and so I selected my own state's firearms rights organization, Oregon Firearms Educational Foundation. That's OFEF, and you can find the link below, I believe. And they do a lot of good work in Oregon to help just maintain the state of gun rights. And there's not a lot more to say about it than that. They've been doing that work for a long time and done a lot of good work, and got a lot more work ahead.
So interesting you picked a state firearms charity because folks these days are so up in arms about the NRA and who's going to replace the NRA and what's going on with the NRA, blah, 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 blah. The truth about firearms rights and the advancement and protection of firearms rights is that there's a ton of good work that gets done on the state level in many, many, many states. We're fortunate here to have Firearms Owners Against Crime in PA and a recent very good example of good work being done at the state level is VCDL, Virginia Citizens Defense League. The folks in Oregon have been known for pushing back and taking the fight to the evil ne'er-do-wells, if you will. So I like the idea of a state firearms organization because we're all going to need some help here in the next 4, in the next 8, in the next 12 years.
Yeah.
And even in the good times, we got to learn as firearms owners that when things turn red, we can't relax, and when things turn blue, we can't run away. Our rights are universally in jeopardy, regardless of who's in power. We gotta remember that. So, I'm with you on the state organization. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So TJ, what's your surprise? Now I don't even know.
Yeah, so I was inspired by the verbiage on Gabe's website. And while Kent, you were leading the interview as you often do, and doing a very good job, I was diligently designing a shirt for Gabe specifically. So if you head on over to teespring.com and check out the Sling'N podcast store, you will find the No Such Thing shirt.
Cool.
God damn, awesome. Bro. You've outdone yourself. That's really cool. Now everybody's going to expect their own T-shirt. So you get to do that. Congratulations.
Yeah, well,
everybody getting their own T-shirt. That's so awesome, man. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, TJ. I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, I'm going to go check it out right the hell now.
Yeah, so
I'll mess up my video thing.
So as is customary, the shirts that we sell on Teespring do go to our guest charity of choice. Admittedly, the designs have been lacking lately. I've kind of hit a block, if you will, a creative block. But consider me inspired. And you know what? I got a wild hair at my ass and decided to make a shirt, especially based off of the inspiration that Gabe has bestowed upon me. So went ahead and threw that up there. So similarly, all proceeds from our t-shirt sales will go to charity. Not just Gabe's shirt, but any of the shirts that you see on there, we will donate to the charities that our guests bring to our attention.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm buying a bunch of these. That's awesome, dude. Nice work.
Thank you.
It's the simplest thing sometimes, you know?
That is, God damn it. We do cool things around here sometimes.
Well,
you have you making me look good.
It only took us 60 episodes.
That's a real good idea, though. I like that. Very cool.
Yeah.
The no such thing shirt. I like it. I really do. That's pretty cool, man. So there's that. And then the part two of the things that we always ask our guests towards the end of the show is about the reading list. So what do you got for recommended reading for us, Gabe? What do you think we should be reading?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Curveball.
Yeah, that is a curveball.
I know.
Mastering Jiu-Jitsu by John Danaher.
There you go. TJ's all happy.
It's a great conceptual book.
Yeah.
Regardless of the jiu-jitsu specifics, it is a great conceptual book.
Yeah. Danaher has probably got some of the most philosophical understanding and ways of explaining the art of jiu-jitsu to people. It's absolutely amazing. I saw that book. It's on my wish list on Audible.
It's really awesome. It's one of those ones that's kind of like it's not as conceptual. It's certainly not as conceptual, I don't think, as Tao of Jeet Kune Do, but it's, to me, a large portion, a major portion of it is approximately as conceptual as Tao of Jeet Kune Do and quite powerful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's excellent recommendation.
Cool. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you guys so much.
Isn't it fun? He was all afraid. He didn't want to do it. He said no. He made his agent get involved. They did a whole different thing. It was just the whole thing. Oprah called. He said, no, finally, I'll do the show. We had to talk to Conan. But no, in all seriousness, joking and silliness aside, right? Time is the most valuable asset anybody can give anybody else. And we sincerely appreciate the investment that you've given us here this evening. Thank you so much for being willing to give us any information whatsoever. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort here. On behalf of our listeners, thank you for your insights and so forth. And thank you for being willing to come to Pennsylvania and teach gun classes when we get that figured out too. That's
cool, man. Yeah. You're all welcome. And thank you so much for all you have done to have me on.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. So guys, again, another one, 60 down, right? We've been at this at the serious professional level for just a little over a year, and we're at 60 episodes, which is awesome. Man, if you're one of my students and you're wondering where to go get better, more quality information, here's yet another resource, and we've just scratched the surface. If you look deeper into Gabe and his lineage and some of the people that have trained with him, some of the people that have trained under him, Caleb Giddings tried his standards with a revolver, I think, one time, right? There's all these people who know a thing or two about a thing or two. When you consistently hear the same names and the same types of content and material coming from now 60 different places.
Well, more like 50. A couple of those episodes are just you and me.
Okay, fine. Fuck off. You get my point. The point is that there are fine, we'll be very specific. There are 49 hardcore firearms instructors on this that have been on this show, and then me, right? My point being, God, there is a plethora of information that you can go seek out for yourself. You heard Gabe talking earlier tonight about finding and vetting sources. And if we can do anything with this show, one of the things we can do is we can pre-vet your sources for you. We can get you further down the path than you could have gotten yourself. And we're pleased to be able to bring that to you, and we're pleased to be able to bring that content to you for free, right? So this is and will remain free. That being said, the stuff that we need to do it is not free. So if you feel like helping support us, www.greenmountaindefense.com /affiliate-links. If you're going to buy gun stuff anyway, you might as well buy it in such a fashion that gives us a buck or two, helps us keep the lights on and keep the bandwidth and all that stuff going. We pay our guests exorbitant amounts of bribes and money to come on the show. Not really. But, there are costs involved in syndicating a podcast and getting Apple and Spreaker and Stitcher and all these things. Joe Rogan said he was going to have us on Spotify deal sometime within 30 years. That was real nice of him to promise. Maybe. We'll see. Point being, we could certainly use the support. So greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links. We would be remiss if we didn't mention some of our more premier partners and folks that help us. One being Primary Arms. So source for high quality optics and all kinds of other firearms, gear, accessories, equipment, ammo when you can find it, et cetera, et cetera. Primaryarms.com. If you're part of this lifestyle and you're not considering medical, you should be. So go see Kerry Davis at darkangelmedical.com. We have a code over there, but right now he's doing holiday sales to beat our code. So just go do a buy, and when you buy something there, let him know that the Sling'N Lead podcast sent you. Right On Optics, TJ and I are both pro staffers for Right On Optics, rightonoptics.com for high-quality optics needs. And let's see. We would also be remiss if we didn't mention some of our local training partners here in the Pennsylvania region. Ashton Ray from 360 Performance, Phil Groff from Vineyard Training, myself, Sam DeSimone from Evolution Training Solutions. So if you're in this region and you're tired of hearing my voice, I'm not the only game in town. Please go see one of those fine folks, get some help there. And then more hyper-regionally, train with Apache Solutions out of North Carolina. And, of course, on the big scale, Jesus, we've had Spencer, we've had Tim, we've had Scott, we've had Gabe, we've had Tatiana. The list goes on and on of these high-level national trainers that have been on this show. So if you're wondering what your firearms journey and what your training journey should look like next, just go back 10 episodes and see who we talked to 10 episodes ago and look them up. Probably a very good idea. Let's see. If you're interested in training with me for some reason, because you could go see Gabe, but instead you come see me, that'd be a really poor choice. But just in case, greenmountaindefense.com/training is where you can find my calendar and all that I've got going on. And, man, I'll tell you what, here within the next year or so, if you go to greenmountaindefense.com/training, you'll probably see Gabe's name because he and I were doing some emailing about some hosting. So we'll figure out some logistics, and maybe we'll come deal with another episode of the show here in a month or so and say, hey, so guess when he's coming? We'll do a whole thing.
Sweet.
That'd be pretty neat.
Yes,
so other than that, TJ, you want to do the thing with the thing and press the thing, please?
Yeah, man, I could do that. So, Gabe, once again, thank you very much for joining us this evening. As Kent mentioned, one of the most valuable things that people can give nowadays is their time, and you have certainly given us plenty of yours, and we look forward to having you back and you spending even more time with us because this has been a great episode, a lot of great information and content generated from it, and we look forward to just hearing more about you and the things that you have to offer and some of your adventures in the shooting world. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So for those of you that might be new here, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't yet, please tell your friends and family. We always enjoy a lively chat, so join us live every week on YouTube. Well, generally every week, but every week on YouTube right here, Tuesdays at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. If you by chance miss the live show, you can, of course, find us on any of your favorite podcast players, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, you name it. The list goes on. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.